Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Kings of War battle report. I'm Visibly Riley, and this week we have Ratkin versus Salamanders in a 2300 point battle of dynamic control. First up, we have my opponent's Salamander's army. It opens with a regiment of ancients, followed by a horde of ceremonial guard with the brew of strength. Then we have a regiment of corsairs, two hordes of tyrants, one of whom has the mead of madness, the other the potion of the caterpillar. Then we have two regiments of rhinosaur cavalry, two Lachilodons, a Gekkotas slasher, a Phoenix, a Clan Lord on Raptor, and finally Firebrand. Moving on to my Ratkin army, we have a horde of warriors with plague pots. Then we have two hordes of shock troops, both of whom have plague pots. Then we have four troops of claw shots, three weapon teams, a death engine spewer, a broodmother who has replaced her drain life 5 for a blight staff, a Tangle, Mother Kryza with Blood Boil, and for my allies I brought a horde of rabble, a war trombone, a wingit, and a bangit. Moving forward onto the scenario. Now this one is a little bit different if you haven't been following my series lately on dynamic scenarios. So, starting at the end of the second player's third turn, divide the board into 6 2x2 squares and add up the total unit strength of each player's unit within each square. The rest is, line straddling is the same as in normal control. Then the player who has the highest unit strength in each square controls it. The square in the middle of your opponent's half of the board is worth 2 squares instead of 1 to you if you control it. And then if you control more squares than your opponent, score victory points equal to the number on the table below at the end of your player turn. 1 VP for controlling more squares than your opponent on turns 3 through 5. 2 VP for controlling more squares than your opponent on turns 6 through 7. Note you can only score victory points during your own turn, and of course the most victory points at the end of the game wins. Now, that sounds like a mouthful, but that's just because control is a little confusing, and I try to keep the language as close as possible to the original scenario when I'm writing these. So first off, these corner ones are all worth 1. The center here, so I'm going to be on this side of the field, right? This center is worth 2 to me, or 1 to my opponent if they control it, and then vice versa for this one right here. And what that all means is that if this is my turn 3, so Ratkin turn 3, and I control this square, this square, this square, and this square, I'm going to have 4 points to my opponent's 2, so I will score a victory point. Now, if I control the same thing, so I control 4 and 2 on their turn, I do not score a point, I just stop them from scoring a point. And if I controlled this one, it would just be 2 squares instead of 1. So, pretty simple once you get into it. But first, let's take a look at that terrain before we get into deployment. First off, we have 3 height 9 forests right here. These two are connected. Then we have 2 height flat pieces of terrain right here. We have 2 height 3 hills, followed by 2 height 2 obstacles. And finally, we have 2 height 7 impassable pieces. I will say the terrain is it's not bad. It's interesting. We used a random terrain generator to make this, and I do rather like it. It's a fun table, especially because I'm playing a very shooty Ratkin army, and this has some very, very tight lines of fire, right? That's going to be difficult for me to shoot over, and my opponent probably will not be stacking heights, right? So he tends to put the like a height 4 in front of a height 3 to block line of sight entirely instead of doing like height 2, height 3, height 4, right? So it's going to be difficult for me to shoot over my own troops at them as well. So an interesting table. I will say some of the terrain doesn't quite fit. That's because graciously one of my opponents brought these little neoprenes because I haven't finished up the terrain for my desert table, so I should probably get working on that considering there's a tournament at the end of the month, so I'll need that terrain. But yeah, so anyway, that's the table. I quite like it. It's interesting. And before I get into the deployment, I will say, yeah, my opponent won the roll, put me on this side of the table, took this side. I do think that this side is significantly better for my style of an army, right? Because I have all this area to deploy my long hordes, while this forest is really going to mess with me. But I digress. Let's talk about deployment, starting in this upper left-hand corner. So first up, we have both the Lachilodons, followed by the Corsair Regiment, the Phoenix, and I will take a moment real quick. This army is featured on the table, or on the channel, a lot. You know, I play against this opponent quite a bit, and I love watching this particular army grow because it's just so colorful, right? Like, check out this Coatl in the back here. Lovely stuff. To the right of that, we have Firebrand, followed by the Ceremonial Guard Horde with the Brew of Strength. To the right of that, we have the Ancient Regiment, the Gekkotas Slasher, and the first Horde of Tyrants. This one has the Caterpillar Potion. And finally, the Clan Lord on a Raptor. And then, kind of in front of all that, we have both of the Rhinosaur Cav regiments and the final Tyrant Horde with the Meat of Madness. Now, facing off against this brute force, we have two hordes of shock troops with, of course, Plague Pods and a Broodmother. I will mention real quick that this is the first mistake I made in the game, is deployment. So the second I put this Broodmother down, I was like, oh damn, I meant to put the Tangle there, right? Like I had this whole idea, right? I'm like, oh, I put the Tangle right here, and then the Broodmother can kind of float over here, get some shooting, get radiance, you know, that sort of stuff. But I messed it up and had to compensate later in my deployment because of it. And yeah, I'm not gonna say like it's just a simple mistake made by me, but I will say we were having you know, a pretty big night for this sort of a day. We had, you know, 5 or 6 people hanging out in this room, and it was getting a little rowdy, you know, just because we haven't hung out in a while. So I sometimes don't deal super well with noise, so you're gonna see some of these like simple errors throughout the game that I'm going to make just because I find it hard to focus. But this is the first one of, you know, my mistakes of the game, which is I should have the Tangle there, but it's not that big of a deal. Then we have back here the Tangle itself, followed by the weird little Wingit. I'm waiting until the, you know, the Clash 2021 changes before I settle on, you know, messing with any models, like converting them. Right, so we've got the Wingit right there. We've got the Bangit. This time I'm running it as a Bangit. Back here, we have the Death Engine Spewer, followed by the War Trombone and the first weapon team. Then we have the fully painted Rabble Horde. I haven't done the bases just yet because I don't know how I'm going to base this army. And I don't know if Rabble are going to make it, so I'll mess with that basing later. To the right of that, we have, or I guess behind it, we have Kryza. Then to the right of that, we have the second and the third weapon team, followed by the Warrior Horde with the Plague Pods. I finished the first rank, and now I finished the second and the third since this battle report, so really chugging through these models. And speaking of finished models, we have Clawshot 1, fully done. Then we have 2, 3, and 4, all fully painted. This is following my rhetoric of, originally, it was no more than 15 minutes a model when I was painting the goblins, and then I started on the rat models, and I was like, the tails alone add like a minute a model, so I'm just going to make it 20 minutes and call it good. So that's going to do it for deployment. With that said, let's move on to turn 1. So turn 1, I actually won this roll-off, and I gave it to the Salamanders. I think this is mistake 2 of the game, so I made 2 mistakes before the game even began. Because I was thinking, I often, in these dynamic scenarios, I prefer to go second when I'm running a lot of short-range shooting, right? Like, I do have the claw shots, I do have long range, I have a lightning bolt, but this table's so congested that the long-range shooting might be mitigated. You know, I don't know just yet, but, you know, it's not going to be as impactful as it generally is. So I was like, well, generally speaking, I like to go second in that scenario, but again, due to the terrain, it's going to be really difficult for me to actually push up this table. I'm not very fast, and I need to be thinking multiple turns ahead. So I think it might have behooved me in this case to give up the first turn of scoring in exchange for the tempo, right? So going first is a tempo play. But I gave it up and let my opponent move forward. They don't have any shooting, so, you know, they just sort of move forward with their line. The Ceremonial Guard make a good decision here. My opponent pre-measured it to make sure that they could just wheel right through these 2 pieces of terrain. That's good for them. Same thing with the Ancients here. Made sure that they can go between that piece and that piece. So good stuff. Right here is the only thing. Well, I will talk about the Lachilodons real quick. They stay in the terrain. They're trying to dodge as many of the claw shots as possible. They can't dodge too many of them. Again, the terrain here is very restrictive. This Lachilodon, though, my opponent makes a very canny move of keeping it in this table 6 and behind the hill. It's not going to be able to shoot this turn anyway. It's probably not going to get too many shots in this game, period, but it's always going to be scoring. And since you're scoring every turn, a play like this doesn't feel like you're just throwing your unit away, right? It does something every round starting on my turn 3 onward. If I had, I guess this was mistake 2 of the game. So third mistake before the game began is I really should have this Wingit deployed over here so I could threaten that Lakildon, because Wingits are so balanced they ignore cover. So yeah, just small mistakes made through not playing too much and not playing against people running a lot of small unit strength pieces like monsters and ogre characters. So yeah, interesting there. But the other thing I will talk about, this is the only mistake I see in the play, and I'm not sure it's a mistake as much as a playstyle difference, which is my opponent keeps the battle line straight here, and I'm thinking that this should have been moved forward, right? Because they have about an inch of room here between them and the difficult terrain before they have to stop moving. If they advance forward, they went directly forward. And if they had advanced that 1 inch, that makes it so the Pathfinder unit and the Meat of Madness have an equal threat range, so they're both threatening 16, which actually pushes me back a fair bit. So without that, I can kind of go, well, you can only roll a 3 on this unit. This unit's impossible to charge. This one could charge me, so I can start going piecemeal charge me if you want to. And specifically with the Pathfinder unit, right? I'm not really afraid of this unit of tyrants going in with another unit that will also be hindered into a horde of shock troops, just because I can take out a horde of tyrants with a little Banechant help, right? So anyway, just a thought there, but that's going to do it for Salamander's turn 1. We're going to move on to Ratkin turn 1. So on Ratkin turn 1, things move forward. I've got 1 unit of claw shots, the 1 unit that can't actually deploy anywhere and see anything because of the terrain. So I just run it forward to touch both of these forests. This one with its leader point, since these are, I think we're running them as separate pieces. So now I have, some line of sight for shooting in the future. I move forward with the warriors, and then I run with the rabble because they're speed 5, so they run 6. The warriors then move forward 6 and pivot a little bit to give some better lines of fire to the claw shots in the future. And then I advance my little weapon team battery right behind them just to make sure, with Kryza in the middle for a bit of support. Over here in this area, my plan is just to get some damage onto these ancients. I've got the Bangit, the Wingit, and the Spewer, which moved this turn, so it's going to be hitting on 5s, but I've got that amount of shooting. I'm just looking to get a bit of pip damage up on them before my opponent's next turn. And over here, you can see, yeah, the hills are a bit of a problem. The Pacific Northwest recently won the bid for the US Masters, which means that we're going to be making a lot of terrain. When we make that terrain, I'm going to start making terrain shadows for my terrain, and hopefully for all the terrain that we make, which is super helpful when you're playing a game for any piece of terrain like this, right? Like, I like the way it looks, but it can be a little unwieldy. So if you want to, you just cut out a piece of felt that is the outline of the terrain piece, and then you just pick it up, and then the felt shows you where to put it back after it's not a problem. So I wish I had done that, but I haven't just yet. So we've got some leaning towers here of Ratkin, of the shock troops moving forward. They're just staying out of charge range because there's no reason for them to advance forward just yet. And then the Tangle and Broodmother just advanced behind them a little bit. So that's going to be that. I will talk about the Wingit real quick. So I ended up putting the Wingit right here. I deployed it here because I can get into this piece of Impassable originally. And I went, well, my opponent's going to have a very difficult time dealing with that because their only flyer is the Phoenix, right? So the Phoenix, right? So the Phoenix here is a 75 mil base. It's difficult to land with. I already knew where their individual here was going to go. This individual can't see me. So on this turn, none of this stuff can actually see the Wingit. And then the Ancients cannot reform in such a way to actually charge it because they're not nimble. This unit cannot see it because it's only height 7, or it's height 6. This is height 7. And then the Phoenix itself cannot charge it because it cannot land. So the Wingit is unable to be charged, which is perfectly legal because I didn't do it with a bunch of my other units. I only did it with one piece of terrain. So that's the plan. And then I'm going to shoot, and again, I ignore cover, even though I can only see this little corner. Doesn't matter. So that's going to be that. Let's get into the shooting. So first off, we have, again, the Bangit, the Bangit, the Spewer, and the Wingit, I think, are my only shots. Oh, I also have Kryza's Lightning Bolt on 5+ as well into these guys. I do 8 wounds, which is really high, I think, because they are defense 6, right? But they are also a dash 17 and inspire, so I don't roll the 9 twice to kill them. So moving on, my claw shots, of which I think it's just these 2 units I can see right now, fire into the Lachilodon, do 6 damage as well. That's a great roll. That was 10 shots on 5s and then 2s to wound. I'll take 6. That's a hot roll. I do get a lucky waiver here, although it's not too lucky, right? It was a 7 to kill it. So this just ends with a nice little waiver, which I am fine with. So that's going to do it for turn 1. Let's move on to turn 2. So turn 2 for the Salamanders. Again, this Lachilodon being wavered is a bit problematic because it limits the amount of shooting that my opponent can bring to bear against the claw shots. But they still have a full regiment of Corsairs because they are range 18, a Lachilodon, and maybe Firebrand can get in there. I'm not sure just yet. But you can see my opponent is, forming the battle line just a little bit. Right here, the Ceremonial Guard turn to face against the rabble and the, rat rabble. But that's not gonna, I'm not going to charge there. So, good luck with that, guys. The Ancients reform back a little bit just to also make sure that they do not eat a charge because they've taken so much damage. I believe the Phoenix is not done moving just yet. It wants to be within 6 inches of the Ancients, give them a heal, which means this Lachilodon's just being left out to dry. And then these guys are going to move forward a little bit. Oh, this must be the end of turn shot actually for my turn. So yeah, we've got that in a turn, and now we've got the Salamanders. So the Ceremonial Guard, as I said before, move forward. The Lachilodon here cannot move back outside of the line of sight or range of the claw shots, so just sit still. This Lachilodon moves a little bit. It can only be seen by this unit of claw shots in terms of my shooting, and Kryza, I guess I could do that. But, it can get a shot on me, and if I had been thinking, a little bit more clearly, I probably would have allocated these two... the Kryza shot and the claw shots here into this one Lachilodon. It might have behooved me to do that because this is one of my only chances to get a decent amount of damage onto it. It will have cover either way, so maybe that was what I was thinking. And over here you can see the Ancients do move forward. The Phoenix moves forward to follow them up, along with the little Gekkotas Slasher, which has a gun, so it can shoot at my Wingit, although I do believe the Wingit has cover. So it's going to be 12 shots, I think, on 5s to hit. And then I don't think it has any piercing. Maybe it's pierce 1, so 4s or 3s to wound. And then over here you can see, yeah, the dinos just advanced forward to make sure that the claw shots, I could back up out of their charge range, but I don't see a point to that because I'd be ceding the hill to them, and I can just advance forward this turn because there is a lot of terrain here. And the Tyrants cannot charge just because this piece of terrain is really going to be a pain in the butt. Maybe these Tyrants, right, if like these 2 units combo charge here, these Tyrants could charge, or vice versa, these 2 go here and then 1 Tyrant here. But as long as the Tyrants don't charge together onto a single unit of shock troops, I'm not really worried about it. So anyway, into the shooting, we have the Gekkotas Slasher. It does 4 wounds to my Wingit, which is pretty good, but again, Wingits are a 13-15 nerve, so it doesn't care, it just shrugs it off. And then over here, this is just showing off the Corsairs and this non-wavered Lachilodon taking aim into my claw shots, dealing 2 damage, just barely not wavering them due to the rally of the warriors next to them, which is lucky for me. And here is the end of turn shot because, again, there isn't too much else. Oh, there is the Phoenix goes for a heal onto the Ancients. I think it heals 2 or 3 off in total with Radiance. So, they're still a damaged unit, but they're not, they're not sitting at 8 wounds staring down a gun line, right? Although, that said, I've got a lot of guns, but a gun line, in my mind, is something that's stationary, right? Like, this is not a stationary army. So anyway, that's that. We'll move on to Ratkin turn 2. So Ratkin turn 2, first off, yeah, the warriors just back up out of the charge range of the Ceremonial Guard. There's no reason for me to fight them. It also lets me advance forward with my rabble because, if the goblins die for the rats, go nuts, right? Get them. And it lets me sort of thread the little gap here with my weapon team so I can fire into the Ceremonial Guard without cover just to start the wound train going. And then, of course, I've got the weapon teams ready to go. And over here on the right, I move Mother Kryza to be able to blood boil the ancients, so that's going to be my plan. But in the end, I do want to kill these ancients off, but there's probably a way that I could have situated myself. That Lakildon's pretty far away. Maybe I can't get the Lakildon, so this is the plan instead. And when I move forward with the rabble, I just pivoted into a place where I was still in the front here, still in the front with these units, and I don't care if the ancients are in the flank because I have all the shooting, and my plan is just to kill it, or kill them. So I have one weapon team and one war trombone unobstructed. I have a death spear unobstructed. I have a wingit unobstructed, a bangit unobstructed, and then I have the tangle, which is cover to shoot at. So that's going to be the plan. I also, I guess, have a blight staff that I could fire that they have cover against, but I can fire it there. So that's going to be the plan. I popped the plague pots on both the shock troops this turn. I'm not sure this was necessary because, again, the tyrants really cannot combo charge anything. So I think I probably should have popped the plague pots for this unit to make sure that if both these somehow charged in and cleared a path for that unit of tyrants, they'd still be -1 to hit me, even with the Pathfinder. So, and just left these plague pots ready to go, but I popped both of them, right? So we're gonna move on to the shooting now. So in my shooting phase, I fire all of this, including Kryza's Blood Boil, into the ancients and explode them. Then I actually have a bit of extra shots, so I have the blight staff, and I'm not sure what else could shoot. There was something else that still had firepower. So I do 1 or 2 points of damage to these tyrants, and then I do 3 points to these rhinosaurs. The idea here is to make sure that the Phoenix, while the Radiance of Life will get value, right? The more units, the better it is. The actual heal 5 will get less value. So the plan here is just to leave units injured the entire game, right? So multiple, so they can't all be cleared off at once. And over here, I do a bit more damage, I guess, onto this Gekota Slasher. So looks like I rolled pretty hot there on this turn with my shooting as well. Over here, I fire both my weapon teams along with all of the claw shots, except for one, which I decided to delegate damage into the wounded Lakildon until I got it to double ones at the waiver. So it's at 6 wounds, it wavers on an 11, so I need to do 3, and I believe I did it on the first unit, so everything else goes into the Ceremonial Guard, and I get them up to 11 wounds, which is very respectable. Now the Phoenix has a heal target. And over here, this is the claw shots managed to remove that Lakildon, as I said before. I got it to double ones to waiver, but I got the 4 to kill it anyway, or the 5 to kill it anyway. So we move forward, and that's going to be the end of turn 2 for the Salamanders, or not for the Salamanders, for the Ratkin. And as you can see, the best part of having a shooting army is that you don't have to engage. So you do all your damage without risking a lot of counterattacks, although I am running a short-range shooting army, so I have invited a lot of counterattacks, right? So like these weapon teams can be charged, as can the Wingit. I made a small mistake with the Wingit. I think I must have bumped it because, I just left it where it was, right? And it couldn't be charged by a 75 before, right? Like I made sure of that, and now it definitely can be. So maybe I bumped it. Maybe I just moved it and forgot, just a brain fart. But all this stuff can be charged right now. Well, all of this stuff on the front can be charged. At least Kryza, the Bangit, and the Spewer are safe. So that's going to be that. Let's see what my opponent does with their turn 3. So Salamander turn 3, first off, we have the Corsairs just, maintaining their course, of course, to fire into the claw shots, get rid of them, along with the Lakildon, of course. We have Firebrand making an appearance, moving forward to make sure that the claw shots go down, and also because, my warriors can do nothing. My shooting isn't particularly good either against her, so, she just kind of has free reign to do whatever she wants. We have the Ceremonial Guard completing a charge against the rabble. It is hindered, so we'll see about that. And over here, the battle's definitely being met. First off, as I said before, through mistake or or negligence, I got charged by this Gekota Slasher, so the Wingit's probably going to go bye-bye. But the Phoenix moves forward just to get the heal here and spread its aura out. It's not going to actually heal this unit, so not sure what that... Oh, I guess it's onto this unit, right? It's going for the aura there. Along with the hero here just swinging around to make sure that it can get a charge into my juicy firing base on the next turn. And then we have both of my units of shock troops being charged by 1 Rhinosaur each. My opponent originally went for a combo charge with the Rhinosaurs, both into the painted unit, and then went, okay, so these tyrants are safe, right? Like, the unpainted unit cannot get into them. And I was like, well, I can, because the unpainted unit could hit them just slightly, and then when I pick up in place, I fit perfectly between this unit and the board edge, right? So they went, okay, so it's got to be 1 and 1 now. And then the other tyrants just move forward to have cover in case I shoot at them with whatever. So that's going to be that. Let's see what they do with the Salamander shooting can manage. So first off, we've got the Corsairs plus the Vlakildon plus Firebrand, managing to kill off one of my units of claw shots with 7 damage on them. They're an 8-10 unit base. They are 9-11 right now, I believe. They're gone. Then we have combat. I guess I just didn't. Yeah, the healing. I know they healed the Ceremonial Guard, and it wasn't a particularly big heal. It's just an average, 2 or 3 because it's heal 5. These guys take 0 damage. My opponent, in fact, didn't even hit them, but they were hitting on 5s because of Ensnare and Hindered. And over here, even with the Ensnare and Hinder, they managed 3 wounds, so on 5s and 3s. So fair enough, but don't get the boxcar to kill me, which is great for me. So that's going to do it. Let's see how... yeah, over here, the Winged just crashes compared to this Gecko Slasher, just gets absolutely mauled. And right here, the Rabble end up taking 10 wounds and don't even get wavered, right? My opponent needed a 9 to get the waiver there. So they're ready to go. I don't really care. Like the only thing I care about is that these Rabble can back up. Currently they can't, but I'll just move this weapon team because it is, after all, nimble. So this is going to be the end of Salamander turn 3. They've come into my side of the table, which is important because I have the next turn of scoring, right? So if I was able to take any of these zones from my opponent, that'd be very bad for them because I would be up 1 VP then and be probably winning on attrition as well because they would have had to hold back and I was already winning it, right? So good moves by my opponent. This unit right here is actually facing, I believe, like this. Right, so it's, facing down all this stuff. The Tangle's in its flank, and my opponent spent a lot of time going like, I don't want the Tangle to flank charge me. It's got a lot of attacks, and I'm like, yeah, the Tangle can't fit here. Like, there's no way. So he's like, oh, okay, so I'll just expose the flank then, which is fair. So anyway, that's going to be turn 3 for the Salamanders. Let's see what the Rat can do in reply. So first off, I guess I've got a few out of sequence pictures, but I did fire at almost everything I could at the Gecko Slasher. I got a double 1 here, which is comical, but I also only did 5 wounds, and I know I fired at least 2 weapon teams, Blood Boil, and the Spewer, I believe, shot at it too. So I just rolled pretty poorly here, which is fair. I rolled well I rolled slightly well in the previous 2 turns, so good going. And over here, these are the combats. So I managed to countercharge with both of these units into the Rhinosaur Cav. This one charged the one that already had some damage on them. They had, I believe, 3, maybe down to 2 due to the Phoenix. But either way, I got it to double 1s, killed it, and overran. But I did roll this unit first, which I failed to remove their Rhinosaurs. So I originally had to set something up. So I was like, all right, I was like, well, you're not actually an inch away with this unit of Rhinosaurs. And he was like, and my opponent was like, oh, well, I meant to be. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. The hill is kind of annoying, right? Like, he didn't say anything to me, but like I said, this hill is really difficult to tell, how your units are actually lined up on it, right? Because as you can see, like, this unit's almost fully vertical. So we just bumped the Tyrants back a little bit, and I'm like, okay, so what do we do from here now, right? So I'm like, all right, with the Tyrants there, I don't think it's possible still, right? Because if they disengage 1, they are, they're wider than they are, or they're wider than they are deep by too much of a degree. So when they turn to face, they're going to end up halfway through my unit. So they're not going to be able to get the flank charge here. So I'm like, okay, cool. So if they want to disengage, they can't actually do anything. And if they do that, I believe they also trap these Tyrants. Because when these guys advance forward, it makes sure that the Rhinosaurs cannot shuffle down, right, for the combo charge. So by doing this, I've trapped these these tyrants from being unable to charge, and I'm only going to be able to eat 1 unit of tyrant charging right now, and it's going to be on a unit with very little damage on it, so I'm okay with that. And the end of turn 3 ends up being 0 VP for the Ratkin, 0 VP for the Salamanders. And we're going to move on to turn 4. So turn 4, I will mention that, they died off screen, but all of the rest of my firepower went into, so I had all the claw shots, I had several weapon teams, right? We all fired into my opponent's ceremonial guard. I got them to double ones pretty easily, and then went, okay, let's just take them off the table, because I just have so much shooting. And then I fired a little bit into the Corsairs, and I got a very lucky waiver there. But they are 13-15, and I don't know, it's like 13-15 units that are, in this case, they're def 4, so I'm winning them on 2s with my shooting, right? And it's just like, yeah, I mean, they just get weirdly wavered sometimes, right? It's just, they have low points. So anyway, I did get a waiver there, so that's really good. And we're going to talk about the Salamanders now, I swear. So we have Firebrand just moving forward to mess around with my Ratkin warriors. I believe going to go for a shot onto my weapon team because of course I did not put it within 10-inch charge of my opponent, so fair enough. And then we've got the Lakilodon, the sneaky one, just taking some pot shots at my warriors, just trying to crank up the wounds. Maybe the Corsairs can come in and finish them off. But they are wavered this turn, so it's, maybe it'll be a while. And over here we have the Slasher deciding to go into the flank of the Rabble. Again, I do not care if the Rabble die. They actually lasted... I mean, I didn't think they would die against Hindered Ceremonial Guard, but if they had, I wouldn't have been too mad. Like, it doesn't matter too much to me. So essentially, this is a free turn. So if they survive this, I'll be like, cool. Like, that's yet another turn that they survive. But I doubt they will. So we've got that flank charge. Then we have the Clan Lord deciding to charge into my War Trombone. This is a safe play, right? Like, it's good to, get an individual into this stuff, especially on turn 4. It's starting to get a little late. So this Clan Lord has to start doing work to get rid of this stuff. But it's left all of the Tyrants and Rhinosaurs a little exposed because they don't have Inspire anymore. They are fearless, so, the waiver part doesn't matter, which is really good for them. All this stuff is fearless. Inspires, I mean, yeah, inspiring extra sucks when you've already wavered the unit and you're like, I don't care if I kill them, right? And it's like, well, you have to reroll anyway. So you're like, fuck. So it's pretty good for my opponent because of all the fearless, but again, it leaves them very open to being one shot. So we're gonna see about that. And in my opponent's shooting phase, fires at one of my weapon teams, does 2 damage to it, which is fair. I mean, it only has 5 shots, hits on 4s, and then wounds me on 4s. So 2 is pretty good, and then also gets a kill here. With that unit being in 9/11, but my opponent was due a little luck here, and it's this is absolutely fine. But a little unfortunate for me. I was expecting my weapon team to easily tank that damage for at least this turn. And over here we have speaking of tanking damage, these guys take 6 damage against the Rhinosaur Cav. They do have 9 attacks on 3s and 3s, I believe, so 6 is a little above average. But again, I was unwounded in the previous turn, so I don't really care too much. And this is the big one. My opponent kind of flubs this roll because I only get up to 12 damage. I believe I was down to 2 on the previous one due to my own Radiance of Life. So my opponent dealt 10 damage with the Tyrants. They do have 30 attacks on 4s, wounding on 2s. So 10 damage is a little below average. But on top of it, right, like that's just sort of what 4+ units do. This is well within the variance range, right? Like +2, -2 is some nice napkin math to do for that. But yeah, 4+ units, I'm sure any player that plays a lot of elementals will tell you sometimes they just screw you. So you never know. So anyway, lucky for me, I'm also not wavered. Not that that matters because I do have a Fury Aura. So we're gonna walk right on. And we have the Ratkin turn 4. So yeah, my opponent, if we look at the map, so if this is the map, right, this is owned by Salamanders, all 3 of those, and then all 3 of these are still owned by Ratkin, so it's still a 3-3 tie. So no points awarded there. So we move on to this, the Ratkin. I'm gonna shoot at the Corsairs. They're the target of opportunity right now. I did have a charge that I could take into the into Firebrand, which I would have liked just because 1 damage is pretty good, but I decided in the end to not do it, and I'm not exactly sure why. Because if I charge into Firebrand, it's not like I get flank charged or anything, right? Like they're gonna... Maybe when I centered up, I allowed some unit to get a... There's no way I gave a flank charge away. I should have taken this charge, is the answer at the end of the day, because dealing 1 damage is enough to turn off her shooting, and then she's not going to be able to see anything to get a charge. This unit is actually too far away to charge. It's outside of 10. So yeah, I'm not sure what I was thinking there. And right here, yeah, I just stare down this slasher and go like, yeah, charge me if you want. I don't really care. But everything else is like, I don't know what to do about this clan lord. So the clan lord and the slasher, they did manage to kill off the rabble and the weapon team that they were fighting. But the clan lord then reformed to make sure that the spewer cannot get a flank charge onto the whatchamacallit here, the slasher. I mean, I could if I killed the clan lord, but that's going to be a tough order right there. Def 5, this clan lord has like 1 damage on them. I don't have any spells that go into combat. I mean, Blood Boil does, but you know, not enough damage on him just yet. So I was like, it's just not going to work, which is unfortunate. So instead, I'm just going to sit here and do some more shooting. So I'm going to try to kill the slasher this turn. That's my priority target. And then any splash damage, I want to go onto the clan lord. Maybe the Phoenix. It looks like the Phoenix has a couple damage on it right now. So that might be the splash target instead. We'll have to see. But I do have to go for a Bane Chant, so I'm not going to be able to use the Tangle that way. But I will have a Blight Staff and, you know, the rest of my support staff here to do some shooting. So we'll have to see. So speaking of shooting, we have actually, yep, these are just the same pictures again. I'm not sure what happened there. So over here in shooting, we've got the claw shots taking aim. I fire into the Corsairs, get them up to 8 damage. Yeah, I get them up to 8 damage. We'll see what happens at the end of the turn. Then I fire everything else into the whatchamacallit, the slasher. I keep forgetting what it's called. And I get it up to 14 damage, which is great because, again, once I get a unit to double 1s to waver, I stop rolling. So yeah, it's a double 1 waver there. It also has shattering on it because the bang gets been rolling gangbusters over here. I guess bang gusters. So yeah, I've got it up to 14 damage plus a shatter, so it's a 15 out of its 16, 17 nerve. So it's actually double 1 not to kill it. So I'll take that. And we're just going to do this a little out of sequence. In close combat, I did manage to get the Bane Chant off. I killed off the Rhinosaur Cav and overran just to mess around with these tyrants. My thinking there was no way I could block the flank charge from these tyrants onto these shock troops unless I opened up the flank of this unit to these tyrants. So in the end I went, I don't know, I guess I'll just sacrifice this unit instead of the painted unit because the painted unit's closer to the combats. But after that, the painted unit then just rolls, you know, it's 30 attacks on 4s and then 2s because I nailed the Bane Chant there. So that's an average of like 12 wounds, so it's a 5 to kill. And I got him out of here. So moving on, we're going to take a look at the end of turn shot just so I can show what happened with the shooting. So yeah, I managed to kill off the Corsairs at 8 damage. So that was a 7 to kill them once. I nailed it. And then I got not the Ceremonial Guard, the Slasher at double 1s. I did not roll that again, so I killed it off. And things are looking quite strong for the Ratkin, but we're still at 0-0 because we just haven't moved out of our areas. And again, this is one of those things I'm talking about with noise. I'm not trying to say that the people in this room should have been more quiet. I loved the fact that people were having a great time. I just have an inability to not focus on everything being said around me at all times, right? So like it all just becomes kind of a jumble, and I'm not particularly great at this list yet. So I need to, like the Winget's my only real piece where I can go like, I need to move something into a table 6, right? Like I need it right now, or I need to go grab that loot counter. I only have the Winget for that. So, mild mistake by me, but I haven't done anything about it just yet, so it's still a 0-0 tie, but I'm very far ahead on attrition. And with the way I'm scoring Emerald Dragon, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. It's just winning that counts for the basic 15. So we're gonna go for that. So into turn 5, we start with the Salamanders, of course. The Lochilodon just stays over here. No reason to mess with what's working here. So they're just gonna stay over here. I think it's actually, maybe it moved back. I definitely moved back, but I'm not sure why it moved back. But either way, doesn't matter too much. We've got the Phoenix just coming around the edge here to fire into probably this weapon team, because I did guard the edge of the weapon team from being able to charge by Firebrand. And this is something that surprised me, because I could have sworn I kept this weapon team out of Firebrand's charge range. So maybe Firebrand charges 6, right? Or charges 12. And I just messed that up, or maybe I just messed up the basic the basic measurement, and my opponent just noticed that it was within 10 and took it. Either way, Firebrand gets the charge there, which is unfortunate. Again, we have where'd the Clan Lord go? Oh yes, the Clan Lord's over here. I was like, yeah, the Clan Lord must have charged the Bangit, right? Or maybe the Spewer, or Kryza, whatever. No. The Clan Lord has to charge over here, because when the Tyrants take this charge, which, you know, I guess they feel they have to right now. They have to get this this damage going. It is a hindered charge into shock troops that are very, very lightly damaged. And if they fail to kill me, these shock troops can still see their back edge. So I can go forward, pivot, and hit them, and then pick up in place and get a flank charge there. Even hindered, you do not want shock troops, shock troop horde in the flank. So the Clan Lord has to take the flank here to block off that charge. So they go for that. And in combat, my opponent with 15 attacks on, this time with 15 attacks on 4s, and elite this time, and wounding on 3s, because Crush 2 over Pierce 1 only manages 4 damage, and then to add insult to injury, only gets a waiver. So unfortunate for them. But, you know, I guess it's fine, because it is disordered, right? Like, you know, it can't charge, it's wavered. You know, it doesn't really matter right now. But over here, this is unfortunate for my opponent, because the Tyrants go in, they get this unit up to 13 damage, they get a waiver, which is great, right? Except again, I have the Fury Aura, so I can just countercharge back in. The Lord is only sitting on 1 damage, so shock troops in the flank, not that it matters that it's in the flank against this thing, but I'm not sure I can actually kill it. I've got 30 attacks, right? I hit on 4s, wound on 4s, so it's like 7.5 wounds on the mean. So that's not great odds for a 13-15 unit, but I do have a Bane Chant available, so we'll have to see where that goes. And here is the end of turn shot for the Salamanders. Again, for victory points, there is no change, because the Salamanders have this, and I believe they still have this, while the Rats are holding off their own. So that's going to do it for turn 5 Sallies. So let's go into the Ratkin. Turn 5 Ratkin. I finally start moving some units. So I move the claw shots. I have nothing left to shoot at, so I just advance them 6 forward, because next turn I can run them 12 to mess with this Lochilodon's little area. I move this claw shot over here, so I run them 12 because the warriors are probably going to abandon the center really soon, so I want some unit strength here. And then I leave the last one right here, so the claw shots are going to spread out and search for clues, right? Or in this case, search for VP. And over here on the right, as you can see, I run my Spewer forward, and that's because I'm actually in, you know, if we look at the grid here, this is where the Spewer is. So it's actually in the center. So turning that off for my opponent will give me, I think gives me an auto point, because I'll have 3 and now they're down to 2. So that's going to be my plan there, since it's so difficult to move my units around, you know, with their being infantry hordes and, you know, or not scoring units, and then also all these forests. The rest of my shooting just gathers around to mess around with the with Firebrand. Why not, right? So we're gonna go for that, and then these guys, yeah, I'm gonna go for that Bane Chant. I also had to move over here to get the Fury Aura going, and then I've got a Blight Staff, right? So that's gonna be that. And in combat, I managed to just waiver the Clan Lord. That's good. Waiver's great. I did roll this first, of course, because you always try to roll Inspire first. it looks like I failed the Bane Chant roll. So Bane Chant 3, just missed it. So yeah, I went for the kill here, didn't get it, got the waiver, but it didn't matter in the end because these guys rolled fairly well and managed to kill off the Tyrants and overrun into... so again, if this is the 6th, the Rat can now have this. This is contested, this is Salamander, and then Ratkin. So it is in fact going to be 4-1. And here's the end of turn shot. I actually, you know, if these Tyrants had, if they had just, you know, I don't know, if they had even removed one of these Ratkin or the hordes, right? Like this would be a very different game. Unfortunately, I think even if they had popped this unit when it got wavered, I think that's too little too late, right? Just because I could have charged, or they could have run past, I guess, but they had maybe they didn't have any damage on them. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it could have been fine, especially after I got this waiver here, but I probably wouldn't have taken the charge. Probably would have just turned the face and then shot at them a bunch, or maybe charged the tangle. Either way, this is what it looks like, and that's going to be the first VP of the game, 1 for Ratkin and 0 for Salamanders. So with that, we'll move on to turn 6. So turn 6 for the Salamanders. The pictures are going to come fast and loose, and I know what you're thinking. They're already pretty loose, but anyway, we've got the got the Lakilodon here, taking aim, fires into my warriors, bringing them up to a mighty, respectable 3 wounds. So they're still not boxcar wavered, and they continue forward. Over here, we've got the Phoenix taking aim and firing into the wounded weapon team, doing a further 2 damage, and again wavering it, which means that my opponent rolled a 3 here. They're only an 8-10, right? So rolled a 3 and just got a second waiver on this unit, so got a feel for them. We've got the big lady here, the Firebrand, going into my Bangit. Should be an easy kill. Always keep in mind that Bangits are wounded. If you wound them on a 6, you get an extra die. So yeah, that's going to be that. Yeah, it's just more establishing shots, I guess. We've got the Clan Lord just backing up a little bit, and that's it for my opponent. So let's see what happens. My opponent gets 7 wounds on the Bangit, and like I'm reminding them, I'm like, just make sure you mark down any 6s because they're double damage, right? It's a weird Bangit roll. And he's like, okay, cool. So he rolls 7 damage here, and I'm like, all right, awesome. And rolls another 3, right, for the kill, and I'm like, are Bangits 8-10? They should be, right? Like that is a stat that I believe a Goblin hero at 60 points for this should be an 8-10. I open it up, of course they're a 9-11. And I'm like, why? Why are they 9-11? So yeah, my opponent gets a waiver here, and I'm like, well, don't even get those points. So that's going to be the end of Salamander. Turn 6, they have 0 VP. They're not going for the win anymore or the draw. They're just trying to get some attrition because we are using the Northern King style for just the attrition at Emerald Dragon, which means that whatever you lose doesn't matter. It's just about what you kill. So they're going for these easy targets and just wavering them. So with that said, we'll move on to Ratkin turn 6. Ratkin turn 6. So first off, we've got several units just running off. We've got the claw shots here running forward to mess around with the Lakilodon, so we turn off that. We've got the Ratkin warriors. I can't tell if they're in this, if we look at the 6. I don't know if they're here or here. Either way is fine. We've got these claw shots, again, moving into this little area, this little table 6. And off here on the right, my unit's just sort of fumbling about because they're trapped and don't really matter. So I'm just taking all the 6 if I can, and then we're going to shoot at these 2 remaining units that are in my lines. Again, the Bangit and this one weapon team are wavered, so they're not going to be able to shoot. And then the Spewer, when it turns, right, so that's movement, so it's -1 for that, and then it's going to be -1 for cover to shoot at this Phoenix, or an additional -1 due to individual. So 6 is either way, but we're gonna go for it. I don't know what the Tangle's doing. I think I haven't finished the Tangle's movement. I think it comes back down. So anyway, we're just gonna take aim. We get the Phoenix up to 5 wounds. We get the Firebrand up to 8 wounds. It is a dash, or she is a dash 15. So that's gonna be a 7 twice to kill her. And then I think it's a 14, 16 for the Phoenix, so an 11 twice to kill that. So yeah, this is just showing off some movement. And I do not manage to waver or kill either of those units. And we're going to move and see if we get... Well, first off, we're going to score, right? And of course, the rat can get a double VP for scoring on turn 6, right? So I'm up to 3 VP, because if we look at the table, I own, well, I think I might own all of this and then just contest that. So I think it's 5-0 right there. So I do get 2 VP, so it's up to 3-0. It is no longer possible for the Salamanders to win if there is a turn 7, but we roll off anyway. And of course, there's a turn 7. So turn 7. First off, we have the Phoenix just taking aim, going like, I'm going to kill this stupid weapon team. And Firebrand agrees, goes into the Bangit, right? Just looking to pick those easy points up and they do. So yeah, I believe I can't remember if that's 1 or 2 wounds or if I even move the wound dial, but it definitely dies. And the same thing with the Bangit. I definitely didn't move the wound dials. They explode. And up here, we have the Lakilodon can fire at my claw shots, does 1 or 2 points of damage, doesn't even get a waiver. And that's going to do it. So they are still at 0 VP, but they did manage to kill off those last 2 pieces. So moral victory to the Salamanders. But let's take a look at the real quick shots for the Ratkin. So yeah, this is going to be the last shot I actually took of the game. So the Rat can go up to 5 VP to the Salamander's 0. I did manage to kill off Firebrand, which you might notice is missing. But the the Phoenix actually regened all 5 of its wounds, and then I did 5 wounds back to it after I got Firebrand up to double ones. So yep, she's the Phoenix is fine, and then I did not hit the Lakilodon, so it's absolutely fine. Completely unmolested. And that's going to do it for the game. Let's get into conclusions and list discussion. So conclusions, I really like the dynamic scenarios. Dynamic control can be difficult when you don't have flyers or a lot of high mobility, but that's on me for bringing the list. And part of the goal of writing these dynamic scenarios is to combat lists like what I'm running. So a lot of shooting is very powerful right now, and I think the correct way to control that, right? Like, you don't need to be constantly raising the points on things, removing them, right? Like, so on and so forth. There are some problematic units out there, of course, like the Bangit, the Wingit, Goblin stuff, right? But I think at this point, what they should be looking at as a design team is the scenarios, or are the scenarios themselves. If you make it so people have to be in the middle of the board, in the middle of the game, you've made it so a lot of shooting armies have to move forward and engage with the enemy. And I think the negative play experience for facing off against shooting armies mostly comes from the fact that they kill you without you ever getting to charge them, right? You never get to fight back and like really give it your all. So if you make it so scenarios force you to the center, you're gonna get to charge them. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. We'll talk about the list now. So let's talk about the Salamander list over here. I actually like this list a lot. I think it looks like a lot of fun to play. It looks like a decently powerful list. I like everything here. I know I poo-pooed on Firebrand in the past. I've said Artakal is better, and I think I was just wrong. I think Artakal is really good, and just to play a little devil's advocate for my past self, I think Artakal was better at that point in the game, just that point in the meta. But I think we've advanced to a point where Firebrand is significantly better just because she's so tough, right? Dash 15, Def 5 individual is just a really, really good asset. So I like all of this list, except for one thing, which might surprise you, the Tyrants. I do not think Tyrants really work right now. They're an excellent unit. They're well costed. They hit like a bag of hammers, right? They're a dash 17 on a wild charge D3 speed 6 unit. Those are all great stats. Unfortunately, I don't think they currently are useful stats comparatively, right? I would rather both Tyrants be taken out, replaced with another Horde of Ceremonial Guard, and then another decent regiment like Corsairs, right? I think that'd be a significantly better list, right? So like, of course, buy them an item, right? Something. And at that point, when you're running double Ceremonial Guard, you might want to look at I can't remember what it's called in Salamanders, the hero that gives you Pathfinder as an aura. I'd probably take a look at that unit again, just because, and I think Ceremonial Guard are just such a good unit. So that's what I would change in the army. I also don't particularly rate ancient regiments over the troops, but if you're going to run one, yeah, definitely make it a regiment. So anyway, I think that's cool. As for my list, I think that this is about as close as it's getting to done for the time being. I would like to change it in the future. I can't wait for the new Clash rules to come out and for me to look at the Ratkin units and go, I don't want to bring Goblin allies. I can't wait for that to happen. But until it does, we're going to bring them. So yeah, I am currently fighting through the units. I'm gonna get it painted. I'm gonna get a bunch of Ratkin painted. Again, this will actually be the third. Well, one was actually Ratkin, but the first one I painted was Skaven. The second one was, like 200. They're all, all my things are hordes. So full model count, Ratkin and second ed, where I was running slave spam. So I had like 200 models there, and this list has a bunch of models. But I think that I can get through this list pretty easily, and I still have some Ratkin painted up in my previous schemes, which you'll see with like the Plague Monk models I'm using for the shock troops. Those are the wrong scheme, but they're already painted, so whatever. They're not getting painted again, that's for sure. Or are they? But yeah, so I can change this around. I would love to get a flying individual into this list because I am pretty weak against them. Like, I'd love if the assassin gets some love, it's definitely going in here. So anyway, I hope you guys liked the battle report, and until next time, bye.